Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Titan Talk. And I don't think this is the camera angle I want to be on.
It's just a lot of me.
There's a lot of Killgoon.
There's way more of me than we need at this.
1 second, chat. Let me get us right. There we go.
Okay, hey.
We're looking good now. Welcome to another edition of Titan Talk. We got really exciting show today. If you've been paying attention to our social media channels, you may have deduced that today we are going to be going over the God release map for SMITE 2 and the first 50 gods joining the roster.
Yeah, we're going to be covering the first 50. I know this has been a big question for a long time for the community, but we wanted to make sure that the list was in a good enough place and we felt comfortable enough in the information that we were sharing that things weren't going to super change. So yeah, we're excited to run through the list today and
I'm hyped.
Do some reveals. So yeah,
it's gonna be a really exciting show full of spoilers, lots of drum rolls. But before we get into it, did want to just call out, we had a patch go live this morning to fix an issue with Odin. We actually, I guess it was a stealth buff. We made a change to Odin and we forgot to include in the patch notes. Sorry, chat. It's going to be in the patch notes that go live whenever Closed Alpha 6 goes live. But we added back Odin's ultimate passive to where if he kills an enemy inside the cage, he gains stacks of strength.
But only a god, which was what the bug was. Because if you would kill a minion inside of your cage, you were also gaining stacks of strength.
And that was
not
too
good.
Busted.
Yeah. So we brought that back. I think it was something that we were missing. We were experimenting with changing it up because it is kind of a niche thing that is sometimes hard to get stacks of. But people felt like it was just much more core to his identity than his new passive, where he just kind of got short-term stacks of strength after a kill. So.
Right. It's a fun mini game, right? It's like I get my ultimate, and it's like, oh, time to kill somebody, get that stack. You can do it now in SMITE 2.
Yep.
And not on minions, which was
not
really overpowered.
Yeah, so. It's like when Sobek's ult executions briefly granted him health based on
minions as well.
Yeah, also OP. Turns out should not make things stack off of killing minions.
Exactly. All right, well, that was it in terms of patch, bug fixes, updates, live now in SMITE 2. Yep. Shall we get into the presentations?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say, I know that there is another kind of bigger balance pass that's been being worked on right now. So, stay tuned for more balance coming soon.
Yep, on the way.
And flash tests probably
this evening, yeah.
So if you want to play Nemesis, Kepri, and Izanami, they'll be in the flash test later this afternoon, most likely.
Yeah. So pay attention to our official Discord. We'll probably do some social promo as well, letting people know that they can hop onto PTS for a couple hours to try out all the new characters. But speaking of new characters, we got a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, we do have a lot to talk about.
I'm going to pull up the handy dandy laptop.
But we're going to be talking about it in my special way of talking about things. So...
Dun, 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 dun.
Maybe we should just hide ourselves.
Yeah,
we'll just hide ourselves.
Hide ourselves today.
Yeah. I figured the best way to go through this list of gods was with a PowerPoint.
Yes.
Because I love making PowerPoints and I love GIFs. So there's going to be a lot of dumb GIFs in a PowerPoint presentation because my passion is graphic design. So let's go. Let's roll through it.
All right, cool.
So we're going to start off with just kind of a quick disclaimers, right? Things will change. Give it a click. Everything that we're going to talk about today is subject to change. I think I put subject to change on every slide in case y'all screenshot them and share them, which y'all are welcome to do. But just as much as we can reiterate and you who are watching can help let people know, like, this is our plan. We're sharing our plan with you, but everything can and does change.
Yes.
Making gods is hard, right? There's frequently things that pop up that are unknown challenges that will face us when we're making a god and will cause the god to take longer than we had expected. Very frequently we find very tiny things that the god did that were never documented anywhere, but somebody found out, and then it takes a lot longer to do it the right way, right? But we're trying to make sure we do these gods in the right way. So in September, before we went on this path to make gods faster, we were thinking we'd have around 30 gods in January, right? With this new push trying to get to 50, like 50 is still the number that we're trying to get to, but I just want to kind of reiterate that even if we get to 45 or 47 or something, we would consider this push to be a success, and it would set us up to continue to move more quickly on gods even after this push. Yeah. So this has overall been a success. We're also working on a lot of things that aren't gods, but I'm not going to tease all those today. So sorry, this is focused on the gods. But I just want to say there is other stuff that we are working on. And this deck is in keeping with the show. It's a little bit silly. I didn't waste a lot of time making this other than generating the glitter text headers because I thought that was funny.
And gift searching.
And I'm really quick at finding gifts. You'd be surprised. And as I said, as a true millennial, this presentation is full of gifts. I've heard that millennials are notorious for overusing gifts.
Yeah.
So that's me. Also, I don't own the rights to any of these gifts, so please don't sue me.
Yeah.
And I have millennials. We're the worst. Anyway, awesome. Let's move on to some stuff that you actually care about. So on November 26th, we talked about these gods on the last update, but just officially confirming it here. The first god coming out on November 26th will be Cupid.
Yay.
Yeah. And Cupid also does have a model rework as part of this. So we're excited about that. Obviously, some gameplay changes as well, but pretty exciting.
Yep. Next up, we've got
Thor.
Iconic. People have been asking for Thor since the alpha weekend phase. So we're
Yes.
super excited to get him into the game.
Yeah, I think he's like probably the most iconic Smite 1 god that's not in the game right now. So we definitely needed to get him in.
Yeah.
And lastly, on November 26th, Poseidon.
Yes.
Unleashing the Kraken just has always felt great.
Yep.
We have been working on him for a little while. He's a slightly more challenging god in some ways, but excited to bring him in.
Yeah.
So this is the we already told you that these three gods were coming if you watched Wednesday's show, but we just wanted to reiterate that on November 26th, these three gods will be releasing. Yeah. I don't know who made this Poseidon gift, Flairboot. As I said, I don't own the rights to any of these gifts. I found them on the internet. I'm pretty sure that one was on Gift Hunter.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So now we're going to go to start kind of rebuilding some new stuff. So the next patch after November 26th is currently targeted for December 17th.
Or 10th.
December 10th.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Subject to change, right? The patch date could change, but that's what the date that we're targeting right now. So 2 weeks after the previous patch. And the first god of three gods in that patch is going to be
Drum roll.
Aphrodite.
There we go.
Yeah. So I think Aphrodite is probably the most community requested god based on the chat that
Under
I've been seeing
every
here.
social media post, all over the official Discord, players love them some Aphrodite.
Yeah. And Ben was on the show a little while ago, showed off Aphrodite's model. So I think we're kind of on the right track with that. She's got some cool new gameplay features as always. And it'd be exciting to have Afro in the game.
I know. All right, next up.
Pele. I don't think we teased this one at all.
No, we haven't. Yeah.
But we're really excited to bring Pele in the game. Pele is a really good jungler who adds a different kind of jungle play style to the game that we don't have right now. Also, always a very popular character across all skill levels. Kind of in and out of SPL success as well over the years. So really excited to add more jungle because I think we also just need more junglers in the game.
Yeah.
So we're going to have, in this upcoming patch, we're going to have Nemesis, then we're going to have Thor, then we're going to have Pele.
Yep.
So 3 patches in a row of more junglers being added to the game. So we knew that you guys were starving out there and we needed to, cook up some delicious meal here.
Yes, and Pele's going to be fire.
Yep. And the last god in the December 10th update is Medusa.
There we go.
Yeah. So we need we timed that perfectly because CatNat976 said right before we revealed that need more hunter.
There
too.
we go.
Hey, look, we got more hunter too. So Medusa, obviously a hunter who is iconic, been around for forever. Also, always a very popular character on console.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't have the backpedal and side strafe movement penalties in the same way, so it feels really good to run around with her on controllers.
And it's harder to turn around on console too, or a little bit slower depending on your sensitivity.
Yes. So Medusa, exciting. They're cooking up some interesting gameplay changes for her that I've seen. I think she's going to look largely like she does, today, just updated.
Yep.
But yeah, exciting for December 10th. So that just kind of to reiterate, before the end of the year here, we've got 3 more patches.
Yep.
We've got 9 more gods coming before the end of the year. And that's pretty exciting in my book.
It's super dope. Yeah.
Sweet. So now let's talk about kind of what's after December 10th.
Cool.
We have holidays and blackouts. So this may come as a surprise to some of you, but we are indeed real people with families. And because we are real people with families, the devs are going to get a little bit of time off around Christmas and Thanksgiving. If you have one more click. So we are not going to be working like over the week of Christmas or over the week of Thanksgiving, right? Also, the entire industry again, maybe a surprise, is staffed by real people that has families. So if you click one more time, Microsoft and Sony actually will completely shut down for the holiday season. There is nobody at their offices. They will not answer your emails. They are off doing their own things.
Yeah, they're off the grid.
Yes. And so they have what they call a blackout period from December 21st until January 4th. And during that blackout period, we actually cannot safely update the game. We can keep the game running. We can do everything on our side, but we can't ship patches to the game safely that require a client update. Like things that are server side we can do, but things that require a client update, because click. Next. Oh, sorry. No, I'm going too far. Because if anything goes wrong with that update, then, and it would require their intervention to fix it, to put a new update out, then they won't fix it. And you would just not be able to play the game on that platform until January 4th. So we do this every year. It just is kind of maybe a little bit less obvious that we don't patch during this time window because we don't patch as frequently as we have been patching right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's just, we cannot patch between December 21st and January 4th, just to be clear to everybody.
Right.
Okay. Also, we're going to be prepping for the SMITE Founder Series Vegas Land, which is January 17th to 19th, I believe. And as part of that, we want to give the players a build on or around December 15th that is the version of the game that they will be playing in Vegas, which includes a lot of the new gods, which includes a bunch of the new features that are part of the kind of the big release. And we want them to play on that release at Vegas Land. That's currently the plan. And they'll have that server available for them to practice on the whole time.
Yeah.
So really, we need to get everything that needs to be done for January done by December 15th. And then we can polish it after that. But everything has to be like 90% of the way done and in that build by that date. So last note, just in terms of timing here, is that we also have to certify a full build, which is a longer process with the consoles, in order to get text chat in.
Yes.
So we're going to be trying to do that during this period as well. So it's also just going to slow down our ability to push patches like live.
Exactly. Yeah.
So because of that, we're not going to have a big SMITE 2 update between December 10th or so, when that update with the 3 previous gods comes out, and early January, kind of around the time of the Vegas patch. It's going to be a little bit of a slow period, we understand, and it kind of sucks a little bit, but it's part of the holidays and us building up to hopefully a really huge update in January.
Yes.
One person asked in chat, will the build on December 15th be available to everybody or just the pros? We probably will be doing flash testing for everybody starting in December of the build that's going to be going live, in January. But it's not going to be up 24/7 or anything. It'll just be kind of regular flash tests. Cool. And then now that I've done all the kind of boring stuff, let's talk about the gods that are coming in January.
Yes.
So I've split these up into two kind of waves here for everybody to listen through. The January wave 1 is gods that we are near 100% confident right now will be in the game in January.
Yes.
They're in our internal playtests right now. They're going through the art pipeline. Everything's looking really good. The gods that are in January wave 2 are gods that we are less confident will be in the game in January, but we're still working really hard to get them in the game for January.
Yeah.
And if they aren't in the game by January, they'll be in the game very shortly after in early February.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So again, as I kind of said at the beginning of the show today, if we get to 45, 47 gods in January and the next few come out in early February, I think we would still consider this a successful initiative of getting more gods in the game.
Yeah.
But I just want to give you guys that expectation where you know what to look for here. So with way too much preamble, let's talk about who these gods actually are.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. January wave 1.
January wave 1.
Subject
to change as always.
All right. First,
what is that font? I actually Googled a glitter text generator. It was the only thing I spent time on this presentation.
It's great.
January wave 1. Here we go.
All
First god.
Ooh.
Yeah. We mentioned he was going to be the first stance swapper coming to the game. He destroyed me in the dev playtest yesterday, and is one of those really high skill cap characters that adds something different to the hunter role.
Yeah.
So Really excited to bring him to the game. He's also kind of been able to flex into other roles somewhat.
Yeah,
in the
we've seen
past.
Uller, mid, Uller, ADC, of course. Some Ul solo, I believe, solo or troll.
Yes.
Running that in SPL last year. So, yeah, Flex Hunter, Stance Switcher. We had Ben on last week, showed off some of the model updates and stuff like that. So, really exciting for Uller to join the roster.
Yeah.
But next up, January Wave 1, we have
Agni. I don't know if we've teased Agni at all.
No, we haven't.
Agni is looking good. Again, Agni also destroyed me yesterday. I was just on the wrong team. Agni, great mid laner. Kind of the artillery mage, you know, has a little bit more range, a different play style than any mid laner we have right now. Also has a dash, which is you know, a little bit more of a mobile mid laner.
Yeah, I was
going to
call out so far. Right now we have a lot of mid laners that don't have a ton of mobility, so getting Agni into the mix is going to add some spice for sure.
Yeah, so I'm excited about Agni. Chaos is also excited about Agni.
Nice.
So, yeah. And then the third god in January Wave 1.
My favorite, Mulan.
We had the vote a while ago where y'all said that the version of Mulan with the mask is going to be the default art kind of going forward. So we're excited about that. Mulan, also an incredibly popular solo laner across all levels of play. Maybe not the top 1% SPL, but in everything up until then, she's incredibly popular, has a pretty good win rate as well. Like, she does well. Excited to get her into the game.
Yeah, super exciting for that. All right, next up, we have Geb.
Yeah, so Geb, very exciting. Being able to shield people, add a little bit more of a true support to the game. I have played a lot of Geb. Geb is one of my diamond gods in Smite 1. And also there was a Geb on the other team yesterday that destroyed me. So it was just kind of a wave of these
You're just getting destroyed in playtest.
It was a bad playtest, dude. But I was getting run over. Lermy was just unstoppable. You know, these things happen. But yeah, very excited. And then the last god in the January Wave 1 is going to be Fenrir. So there's going to be an all-new god in this wave, right? We are not going to confirm who that all-new god is today. I'm sure a lot of you have read data mining about who that god is going to be. We just aren't ready to make a formal statement about that yet. We're working on it. We're going to have more to talk about that soon, but there will be an all-new god as part of that first wave.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to January Wave 2.
Yes. So just to reiterate, these are the gods that we are almost 100% sure will be in the early January release that we put out. This next group of gods, we are fairly confident will make it into January, but some of them may slip a little bit. They may come a little bit later. Yeah. So.
All right, I will move us along here.
Fenrir 2 is hype.
Fenrir 2 is on board. Yeah. All right, January Wave 2, our first god in this wave is
Hunbots. Yeah.
An OG.
An OG. I remember when he used to scream Happy New Year when he ultimated. Honestly, maybe my most played jungler.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because I'm not good and I like big circles.
Hey,
but I love Hunbots. I think that he is, you know, when you're looking at like iconic Smite characters, we talked about Thor a little while ago. I think Hunbots is another one of those iconic Smite gameplay characters that like a lot of the game is kind of shaped around the way he plays, right? I found this GIF online and I loved it.
I want to Smite.
Yeah, and he's going to get to Smite.
Too.
So yeah, pretty exciting about that.
All right, next up we have Achilles.
Yeah, Achilles, another great solo laner. Another execute. We just got more executes in the game, I guess. And really fun to play, right? I know that they're looking at, I think one of his abilities, they're thinking about maybe changing up a little bit as part of the +1 stuff and whatnot. But I think that he is a very fun character to add to the game. Yeah. Another good solo laner. And somebody
really big name recognition.
Yes. Yeah. Always really popular. I just love the combat dodge that he has.
It's so good.
It's like the most fun.
Hey, that's that 8-way dodge we were talking about the other show, right?
Yeah. So we have to build out that tech. And we might have another guy that uses that tech later on in this list.
Let's see here. I think they might see him sooner rather than later.
Maybe.
Because the next god
is it the next one?
It's Rama.
Rama. Yeah. So Ram, again, like being able to go up in the air and hit those snipes, very exciting. He... Again, just one of those iconic characters in Smite.
This is your tried and true stem hunter that we don't have in Smite 2 yet. So Rama, when you think about a stem hunter, it's Ram. So
Yes.
super exciting to get him into Smite 2 pretty early on.
Yeah. I think Chaos was the one who was really like, we got to find a way to get him in.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're a Ram enjoyer, thanks Chaos.
Yeah, there we go. All right, moving right along here. We've got 2 more in this wave. Next up, we have Cabrakan.
Cabrakan, yeah. Cabrakan is maybe an interesting choice to people. Part of how we came up with this list, us able to move quickly, right, was a combination of like what gods could we implement relatively quickly with the tech that we had, right, and also like how did that balance out with player interest, right? And Cabrakan is actually like more popular than you would think. He had an incredibly bad launch. So a lot of players that were around when he launched kind of remember him as being like underwhelming or like not cool. But it was just because he was like super undertuned when he launched. And then after that, he's really grown into be a very like steady state, relatively popular character. He's also very flexible.
Play 3 roles, maybe even 4 pretty successfully in Smite Win with Cabrakan for sure.
So I played Cabrakan in the playtest where I got destroyed. So I'm excited for Cabrakan to be played by people better than me in the actual game.
Cool. All right. Last up for Wave 2 in Smite 2
is Vulcan.
There we go.
Yeah. So Vulcan, again, I think pretty much all these gods are just like super iconic. Vulcan is one of my most played mages personally. You gotta love throwing out the meatball. You gotta love throwing out the big Earthshaker? Earthshaker Ultimate?
Yeah, It's
Earthbreaker?
Earthbreaker.
Earthquaker?
Yeah, I know, right? What?
Smasher? I don't know. Big Circle Go Burr, as Lukey Pookie says in chat. Plus, dropping the little turrets. He just, one of the things I like the most about Vulcan is that even in Smite 1, he's a god that you could rank any skill. And it was a reasonable choice to do. It wasn't like you always had to rank your 3 first, or it was like, no, depending on what the lane matchup was, you could do different things, which was really neat. So
yeah, Vulcan is one of those characters that when you're hitting your stuff, you just feel like the man or the woman or whoever. But like whenever you get into that loop and you're hitting your stuff, he just feels so good to play and super fun to play. So really exciting to get Vulcan into the mix for sure.
Yeah, and so I think. This is the first wave, right? This was all part of our push to get to 50 gods kind of as quickly as possible. And if you go to the next slide, I think I've got the kind of overview, in which maybe hopefully it's big enough for y'all to see on your screen at home. But this is kind of like the order of how we have released gods so far, right? And I think that you can see like the moment where we switched to this new trajectory and path, like we just started speeding up tremendously. The number of gods in the game has gone up a lot, right? And we're going to get to this 50 number pretty quickly. And then we're going to keep shipping a lot more gods really quickly, right? The plan is not to, we'll probably slow down a little bit after we get to 50, but we aren't going to slow down to even the cadence that we thought we were on before, right? We want to make sure that we keep going really quickly. Everybody has their personal favorite gods, which is the one problem with putting out this list, right? Is that everybody's like, what about Mercury? What about like, I don't know. There's a lot of gods that come out in the chat. And we know that every god is somebody's favorite. And this like push that we've done has gotten us closer to getting your favorite god in the game, right? Because we were able to get through this list relatively quickly. And then we're going to keep moving quickly after this. I made some notes on my little handy dandy notepad here. And initially before we committed to this change in our planning and our development cycle, we were only going to get to around 30 gods in January. Right? Now we're going to be at 45 or 50 gods in January. We weren't going to get to 40 gods until April 22nd. We're going to be at 40 gods on December 10th. And we weren't going to get to 50 gods until August 5th.
It's a big change.
It sounds really stupid. Like when I look at this, I'm like, what the hell were we thinking? But we have moved faster than we thought possible, to be honest, to get to this number. And it's proven to us that we are capable of moving fast.
Yeah.
Like I said, we aren't going to be able to continue moving quite this fast because we have harder gods next on the list.
Yep.
And we also want to start doing more all new gods because those take more time.
Yep. We want to focus some time on new items as well.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yeah. So, new items. Yeah. Like you said, there's just a lot of stuff that we need to get that if all of our dev pipeline is going into gods, we can't quite do that. But we want to keep going really fast with gods after this. We're going to get, like I said, the harder gods in. Yep. We're going to, I see a lot of Scylla enjoyers in chat, right? She's actually like really difficult from an artistic perspective to bring over because she gets some really challenging like tech art and rigging things around her like dog tentacle things. So there's a lot that we want to get in, and we're going to be pushing towards those kind of gods shortly after this. So yeah, this is the push.
Yeah.
And as Hindu Man says, I hope you all are happy.
Yes.
No, we're really excited. We're pushing real hard to move quickly here. We've been getting a lot of these questions about who the first 50 gods are.
Yeah.
And hopefully you enjoyed the kind of quick run through today of who the first 50 gods are. And then I can, we can answer questions about other gods that you may have in the chat, but like, I'm not going to be able to confirm when they're coming.
Yeah.
I can just tell you a little bit about like maybe why they're more challenging and didn't make the 50. But again, we're going to keep moving really quickly after this first 50. We're going to keep pushing to get gods into the game super quick, right?
All right. Well, thank you, Alex, for making that gorgeous presentation.
As I said, graphic design is my passion.
I saw lots of compliments in chat,
So I just generally make a lot of PowerPoints for work. And I like making PowerPoints. Normally they aren't quite that silly. They're a little bit silly though. I do put too many GIFs in them. But I also, I'm a big Magic player. And one of my favorite like Magic streamers does like a PowerPoint set review for whenever a new set comes out. I was a little bit inspired by him. Nice. So yeah, good stuff.
Well, shall we get into Q&A?
Let's do it.
What do you want to talk about, chat? I'm sure you all have loads of questions after all that.
Oh, geez. It's moving fast today.
I know, right? You got a lot of people here.
Okay, I see. Because gods. It's all caps, I saw it. Please don't start putting everything in all caps. It just pokes out at me. What about Kuzenbo? Kuzenbo, specifically the tech around him having the Nene Kappa is a new piece of tech that we would need to make. So that's why he wasn't able to be in this first 50. Yeah. He is a popular god. I would expect that he's maybe sometime next year, but I'm not committing to anything after this first 50.
Subject to change. We need an overlay for this skin too,
right. But he, that's why he didn't make the list, because the Nene Kappa is unique new tech that we don't have. Because it's a bounce and it's then turns into a pet. And that pet has to have AI. And, every little thing is another little knob that you have to turn to make it happen.
Yeah. Saw a question about, is Maui a technically difficult god to make? Yes. Maui has a lot of stuff. I'm sure if you ping Aggro on Twitter, he will give you the story. There are some things about Maui that, although he turned out great in Smite 1, I talk to Aggro all the time. He's like, man, if I only had a little bit more time to really polish in, specifically around like the leap and stuff.
That's what I was going to say. That swing is one of the most technically challenging abilities in Smite, which is, I'm sure it sounds bizarre, but to get that to work consistently as kind of a faked swing, because it's not like a real physics driven thing, it's very difficult to get in the game. But yeah, definitely another popular character. I saw a question pop in about why no more stance switchers. We need to do a stance switcher first to build out the tech, and then we will do more stance switchers after that, right? I would, if I'm a betting man, I would bet that the next stance switcher after Uller would probably be like Hell, because Hell is super popular and also has not like a simple kit, but a kit that is relatively easy for us to implement versus somebody that has like a lot of weird, unique tech on top of them being a stance switcher, right? So we kind of always want to build in terms of complexity, just to allow us to develop in a sane way.
Yeah. Let's see here.
When is Gilgamesh coming? I wish that we could have gotten Gilgamesh in earlier. His drop kick is the difficult part of his kit, because getting that to work, knocking people back right and stunning and knocking minions. So again, it's just a unique piece of tech that was a little bit too much to bite off for this first wave. But I do enjoy some Kabrakan, or I say Kabrakan, some Gilgamesh.
Let's see here. Saw a question. Oh no, I missed it. Gosh. Well,
Yeah,
Joust still coming in January. That is the plan.
Yeah, Joust is still coming in January. We're playtesting it right now internally. I think there's actually going to be a ambassador playtest next week for Joust.
I think I did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still a little bit early. Like the art's not done yet, but it's coming along pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
We're also still expecting Assault not on its own unique map, but the Assault rule set played on the Conquest map. We're going to carve mid lane off, so you can play Assault in mid lane, true ARAM. Yep. And that is also going to be in January.
Yep.
Fingers crossed.
I saw a couple people asking about 3-man ranked queues. Do you know if we have an update on that? Maybe we can ping Max after the show
we'll ask
and see
Max
what the timeline is on that.
But I think he said he was aiming for today at one point, but it might have ended up getting pushed into early next week. But I know that he is still working on that.
Let's see here. Talk about the brand new God for 2025. Sorry, we're not gonna. I know everyone's super excited about them, but yeah, we're not quite ready to talk about them yet.
New God does a lot of interesting things, and was also on the opposing team in the playtest yesterday, which destroyed me. I just getting destroyed by the new gods. But yes, a lot of interesting things. We're still working out some of it, though. I think it's like, as a new God, there's more like R&D and design that goes into the kit in terms of like what's going to feel good, what's not going to feel good. So it's harder for us to be like, this is the God and this is what they do, because it's much more likely that small details of that are going to change over the next month or so. So I would expect that we will talk about the all new God probably early December would be my guess. So about a month from now.
All right. I see a few people asking about Serket and Bastet.
So Bastet's,
I would imagine the same thing about like the pet tech we just haven't built.
Pet tech, because the only pets we have right now are Nuwa minions, I believe, and those work differently than any other pets in the game. Right. So there is some specific pet tech that we would need to build for that. I don't remember for Serket what the challenge is, but if I was a betting man, I would bet that it's the jump on your back to ult. I think that that's probably a new piece of tech that we need to build. I love Serket, though. I actually play a lot of Serket in SMITE 1.
Let's see here. Any planned visual tweaks for Poseidon to look more ocean-themed?
I don't expect large changes to Poseidon. We showed off kind of the beard versus no beard thing on a show a while ago. We are going to go with the full beard Poseidon. I saw some work on him yesterday, and I know they're maybe making some very subtle changes to his armor, and he looked like, I don't know how to say this in a way that doesn't sound weird. His chest looked very wet, like it looked like he had just gotten out of the water, but it was still just like, bare-chested God. It wasn't like he had seaweed on or anything. So I would expect he looks largely like he does in SMITE 1, but just better.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Item builder menus coming at any point, or is that closer to real launch? I have a horrible memory when building. Thanks.
So item builder is something that is still on our roadmap, but is one of the more challenging things for us to get to. We don't have, basically, like, your item builder HUD exists only in the game itself. And bringing that out of the game to where you could make builds like in the main menus is a lot of work. And then having a way to save those builds and yada, yada. We are working towards, hopefully, eventually we will have a system where you or your friends or anybody else can post a build, and you can add descriptions to items and descriptions to segments, like, build this first and, build this versus RTO or whatever. And able to have that kind of like in-game guide system, but that's like further down the road. It's not going to be done for January. We're still kind of planning that out and working on it. One thing that we are working on, which will hopefully help a little bit at least, is that we are going to have a recommended tab in the store coming pretty soon, maybe the next maybe the next update, maybe the one after that, which will just have like, here's a first build, or here's like the things that you should buy before you leave base.
Yeah.
Here's a finished build, kind of like in Smite 1, just to give you like here's something that you could work towards and build. It might not be exactly the build that you would build for yourself, but it's at least a good starting point of a build.
Yeah.
And then you could go over and find other items if you wanted to or needed to. So that should help a little bit.
Yeah. Among the 130 gods in Smite, do we plan to rework any of them, or will we just add +1s to every god?
I think it's hard to answer that, right? I think that in general, we think that players enjoy +1s or, kind of the same but a little different more than they would enjoy complete rework, right? Because people like the god for who they are, and if you've been waiting a while to have your favorite god brought over to Smite 2, and then they are fundamentally different, then you probably would not enjoy that. Yeah. So some gods will probably get more tweaks than others, but will anybody get like a full rework?
It's hard to say.
Hard to say. Yeah. I would say probably leaning more towards no than yes, but maybe there are some interesting, edge cases. Like, the one I always joke around about is Nox, right? Yeah. Nox is like so annoying to play against, but that's kind of also who she is, right? So it's like, if you change her too much, do you alienate all the people who like Nox? It's hard to say.
Yeah. See a couple of people asking about Zhang Kui.
Zhang Kui. The 3 Zhang Kui players are in chat. No, Zhang Kui is, he is, I don't know technically if there's anything that makes him super hard. I haven't talked to anybody about Zhang Kui, but I know that when the tech team went through the list of all 130 gods, he did not make the list of easy to implement. So I'm sure there is something that's uniquely challenging about him. Maybe it's his autos. He does have those weird like bonus autos. But yeah, he was one of the more technically challenging ones. I don't know exactly what the reason was on that one. Sorry.
All right. I'm just going down the list. Who Apwash? I see some Apwash enjoyers asking about him.
Apwash's most challenging piece is his ultimate. So his ultimate does not work the way that you think his ultimate works, I would bet, as a player. You probably just think that it damages everybody in the ultimate every so often. It doesn't. You're only damaged when you're hit by one of the zombies that is moving through the ultimate. And because it works that way, it's actually very challenging to recreate. And it's also like surprisingly a big performance hit on Smite 1 because it has to track each zombie individually as its own unique model. Yes, everybody's like, wait, what? That works that way? Yes, that is the way the ultimate works. So because of that, he's a little bit more challenging to bring over. There's a couple other, slightly harder bits of his kit, but that's why he wasn't in the first set. But they said that like other than his ultimate, he actually probably would have been pretty easy to bring over. I know that he is a beloved character who actually has some niche gameplay purpose, right? He's like kind of the strongest anti-heal
Yeah, I
mage.
bet you they're asking because we're implementing more healers into Smite 2 now.
Yeah.
So we need a core anti-healer for sure.
Yeah. So I think like, I don't think you probably are going to end up waiting forever for him, but that was why he didn't end up in this first little push.
Any news on Ganesha?
Ganesh, I think the challenging thing for him was the ultimate, not really from a technical perspective, but from like a tech art perspective. And he is a god that we actually do want to get into the game pretty quickly after his first 50, I would say. I think that he's one of the ones that we're talking about maybe prioritizing because I think we generally feel like we need more supporty supports. Yeah. Because we have a lot of aggressive supports right now. So I would expect that, again, I'm not confirming any timeline for anything.
Subject to change.
But I would expect that you would see him relatively soon after the first 50, within a few months at least, right? Like I think that he's probably going to be one of the prioritized supports.
People in chat asking for the shake and bake to come back.
Yeah, we do have Finner, so we could do that.
I've seen the Huyi Chang'e combo.
I forget that they're a combo.
Yeah.
I think they're both relatively doable. The thing for Chang'e that makes her really hard is her dress. Her dress is like one of the least well rigged and animated and tech arted things in Smite 1.
Yeah, Ben talked about that last week on the show.
Yeah, so to bring her over, we really have to like completely remake her skirt, rig, and all of that, which I'm sure it doesn't sound like a lot, but it is just, more stuff that we need to do. And that's why she wasn't in the first wave. I know that she is a beloved character. I like Shanga.
Yep.
Her rabbit also is unique tech.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those two things I think are the main reasons why she wasn't in this first wave. Hu Yi, he has the reflection, the bounce tech, which
ricochet.
We did already do for Danza. I don't know what the other complicated bit on his kit would have been, but I know that he's somebody that we have talked about.
Yeah.
There was a question about the HUD editor. If you jumped into the flash test yesterday, you may have seen that like kind of a work in progress, like HUD editor was there that you could have goofed around with. It's right now it's like in a super early dev state. It's not to the point where we could ship it to you guys. It doesn't save settings between games is the biggest problem with it. I mean, not like it's a known issue. We just haven't gotten to that part of it yet. But because it doesn't save your settings between games, which is actually like one of the harder parts that we still need to do on it, it's not really usable yet, right? So all of the HUD elements are built with a HUD editor in mind. So they are all scalable and like opacity changing and all that. Like we can do all that, but we just aren't done with the work for HUD editor. So I would expect HUD editor will come sometime after January, not too long after January, hopefully, but sometime after January, just because we have other things that we need to get done before then.
Yeah.
A Kronos enjoyer in chat.
There we go.
Oh, one of us.
You're a man of taste.
A man of taste. I actually, in Smite 1, have a Kronos only alt account that I literally have only ever played Kronos on. And if somebody else picks Kronos, I dodge the game. And
we don't recommend.
I don't recommend doing this. I haven't played this account in years, but this was an old thing. I do enjoy Kronos, and I would like to see him in the game. He does have several pieces of unique tech.
Yeah.
There's the time-based time stop on his 2, I think it is. And then also there's like the ramping slow to stun, and there's the rewind, bring yourself back thing. Yeah. So he's got a lot of unique tech on him. He will probably not be an immediate god, I would say, but I do enjoy Kronos.
Let's see here. So you and LA Dodgers. Oh, that's hilarious.
Don't get me talking about
He's
baseball.
an A's fan. Yeah.
I'm an A's fan, and I have disowned baseball as a result of the past year or two. So I am boycotting baseball.
All right, Janice. Let's talk about Janice.
Yes. He's another one of those like core unique gameplay functions that we don't have in Smite 2 right now. Obviously the portals are, kind of a unique tech that we need to build out for him. But I think that he's one of those gods that we would want to get in the game, relatively sometime next year, because we want to make sure that we're getting those gameplay niches in there.
Yeah. Seeing a few people asking about Mercury as well.
Mercury. So Mercury is, I think the challenging piece for him was the ult, just the way it charges up and everything. Again, no, I'm not saying that any of these gods are like so hard we're not going to do them, right? It's just why didn't they make it into the first 50?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that also Ben wants to update Mercury's model a little bit to make him look a little bit more like the messenger that he is. Still looking like Mercury. He's not going to change his core identity, but I know that that's one that he wants to do a little bit of work on. So I think, a little bit of Mercury model update plus the tech means he'll be coming a little bit after the first 50. Again, I think he's one of those iconic gods that we have to get in, towards the beginning of, after the first 50, but just couldn't make it in the first 50.
All righty. Somebody said Mercury needs the Apollo treatment. We'll take that note.
Okay. Their question about Lancelot. Lancelot is one of the most technically challenging gods in Smite 1 because of the horse and the interaction with riding the horse and not riding the horse. It's kind of like a stance swapper, but even more challenging because it locomotes differently with a completely different model.
Yep, and I'll throw a Wheelish in that conversation too, just because I saw someone asking about a Wheelish. Kind of the same thing, with Suku.
Yeah, and I think Wheelish is actually a little bit easier than Lancelot because she doesn't have like a full suite of abilities while she's on Suku. She can just jump off. Yeah. So it's a little bit easier to get a Wheelish in. A Wheelish.
I can't say that.
And she also has a unique gameplay niche of the pluck out of midair thing. So I think that she's probably one of those that, like, just from a gameplay design perspective, we would probably push to get in, relatively soon, but not in the first 50 because of the unique tech.
I just see it's hard. I see a question mark next to every god.
Every god
that's not in the first 50. Let's talk about King Arthur though, because I've seen King Arthur come across.
So King Arthur is a unique stance swapper, right? Where he basically swaps stance after every ability, and he also, because he's a stance swapper, I believe he has 2 separate animation sets depending on which stance he's in. He has weird auto attacks that are kind of like
they
like root motion
a little bit,
and he also, we also have to do like FX for both stances that are pretty in-depth effects. It's not like Ullr has pretty easy effects, but King Arthur has pretty in-depth effects for both stances. King Arthur will almost certainly be the first Arthurian god after Mordred to be added to the game. We actually initially wanted to do Mordred and King Arthur as a dual release. Yeah. That was supposed to be the plan for that patch, but it was just like, when we got to it, we had so much stuff that we had to do, we couldn't get King Arthur done in time. Yeah. And King Arthur has been like the god that just keeps getting pushed back because it's like, we want to do him, but it's going to take the same amount of time as doing 2 or 3 of these other gods. Yeah. We should probably do the 2 or 3 other gods because people just want more
gods. Fill out the roster faster. Yeah.
But I will say that, like, King Arthur is, we know that people love King Arthur. He's hugely popular. He, again, has like a gameplay niche associated with him that other gods don't really cover as well. So I think that, we'll try and get him in relatively soon after the first 50. Set and Horus will almost certainly not release at the same time. But, they both are gods that have their strengths and weaknesses. I would expect that Horus will come to the game before Set because Horus is both a little bit easier to bring into the game and a little bit more they both have their gameplay niche, but Horus with the group teleport thing is kind of a different strategic angle to the game. So I would expect that we'll see Horus before Set.
Let's see here. When is CA6 dropping? The plan is for early next week.
Yeah, I believe Tuesday is the plan, but it could be Monday, it could be Wednesday, but probably Tuesday.
Yeah. Why wasn't Artemis in the first 50? She seems like she has a simple enough kit to implement.
Yeah, so Artemis actually was very, very close to being one of the first 50. The 2 things that made her a little bit more challenging, I believe, were the Tuskie's AI, making sure that, like, it's not super hard logic, but the fact that she has a pet who has to seek out
valid targets,
just a little bit more challenging than some of the ones that we got in instead. And also, I think that there was something about traps that is just a little bit of new tech. It's not hard, but just a little bit of new tech. Yeah. So, but she was like on the bubble as like the next easiest god, right. And not easy, but if we're trying to move quickly, like, what gods are we going to do? So she was right there. I would also expect that she will be pretty quickly after release, or not release, but after this,
after the first 50.
Yeah.
What about Nike?
Nike has the unique tech on her to block projectiles, which is a new piece of tech, and also like the knockback. Like, it's just kind of a weird piece of, it's a weird ability.
Yeah.
I think there was her 3 is really easy. Her 1, I think, is not challenging. I think that's the only thing that's challenging on her. But again, this is just explaining why they weren't in the first 50. This isn't saying that they're hard to do.
Every god in Smite 1 will be in Smite 2 eventually.
The plan is that every god in Smite 1 will be in Smite 2 eventually, and we're going to go through them as quickly as we can possibly go through them, while also mixing in new gods, because we know that people expect new gods in Smite 2, and if you just are only seeing the old gods from Smite 1, you're not going to be happy long term.
Let's see here. Even Bake Kujira? Yes.
Yes, even Bake Kujira.
Hey, there are some whale enjoyers.
There are
for
some
sure,
whale enjoyers. I like Bake Kujira.
Yeah. Tsukiyomi.
I believe the most challenging thing with him was like the auto attack chain being tied to the different like stances,
abilities. Yeah, maybe.
I don't remember what made him challenging. His ult's also just a
Yeah.
little bit weird. But you know, he actually is like one of our most popular, relatively recent released gods. And I'm a Tsukiyomi enjoyer. I one of my go-to junglers. I think I probably pick Hanbots or Tsukiyomi if I'm playing jungle. Like those are my two, you know, most enjoyed. So yeah, I think we'll definitely they're all on the list. You know, he's not like a super hard one to do. I don't think it's just not for the first 50.
Let's see here. Anything about Discordia? Sorry, I caught you mid bev break.
It's okay. It's okay. I have my Alani Nu Cosmic Stardust.
There you go.
Not a sponsor. Sorry, who was the god we were talking about?
Discordia.
I think Discordia's Apple was a little bit of weird tech.
Yeah, and then you've got the tied VGS to being hit by the ultimate. Yeah.
And then like there's also the way that her 2 strife, I think it's called, the CC like square works. It has like different rules based on like how many people are in the square. Yeah. And I think maybe there's a little something around that. Again, like not a super duper challenging goddess to do, but just not for the first, 50. It was a little bit harder to get to.
Yeah.
Also, like, if you look at the list of gods for the first 50, maybe, I don't know if you can pull it up again, just real quick, just for this. Like, most of the gods that we tried to get in for the first 50 also are some of the more like early iconic gods, right? There's very few gods on this list that are after maybe like season 3 or 4, right? So that doesn't mean that we don't like the newer gods or whatever, but like when we're talking about what's the classic Smite feel that people are missing, a lot of those core kits that bring something unique or iconic to the game, we felt like we're that early group. So we kind of prioritized more the earlier Smite gods that also had achievable kits from a technical perspective to get in.
Cool. All right. We have a hard stop at 2 today, so I'm going to call one more question right now.
Because at 2, do you want to tell people what's next?
Oh, yeah. At 2, we've got a Smite 1 update happening next week on Thursday, I believe. So right after this show, we're going to be doing a Dev Insight show with J-Mac, Dandy, and Lermy to go over everything happening in Smite 1 next week.
Yeah. So I know, obviously, we're all very excited about Smite 2, but Smite 1 is still getting updates out there, right? So if you want to keep playing Smite 1, if you're on an old computer, if you're just waiting for your favorite god to come over, which is probably why you're watching today, or you're waiting for free to play or whatever it is, right? Like lots of cool stuff still happening in Smite as well.
Yep. All right. One more question. Oh man, chat just got flooded.
Yes.
Woo! Do you already know which god will be the last one to be ported from Smite 1 to Smite 2?
No, we do not. We basically, the way that we plan, we know what we're doing like in the next 3 months really well.
Yeah.
We have a rough idea of what we're doing in the next 6 months. Probably, it used to be a pretty good idea of what we're doing in the next 6 months. Now it's more of a rough idea because we're moving much more quickly.
Right.
And then up to like a year out, we kind of have like a semblance of a plan, right? But it's not written in stone. Everything can and will change. Beyond that, we don't really have much of a plan other than like, we're going to do some gods. Because to plan that far out, we know it's going to change. Why waste our time planning that when things are going to change? So people want Bake. Could you already be the last god? No, I like the whale. Come on. Sweet. Let's see. I'm going to take one more question because it's my turn. Do you know who you're bringing on the show next? Is there any chance you can bring in Kellen to talk about the cool audio stuff? We could talk to Kellen.
Yeah, talk to Kellen. Yeah, we haven't even talked about guests for next week. Yeah.
We have not planned our guests for next week. Speaking about how we don't plan that.
Yeah, I know.
No, we need to figure out who our guests are going to be for next week, and I'm sure we'll put out a tweet or something about it.
Yeah.
And you can tune in and listen in. So. I think that's Freya being last wouldn't hurt my feelings. Come on. Come on, guys.
Come on.
But no, we appreciate y'all for tuning in today,
Absolutely.
for being a part of the show as always. Like, we love doing this. This has been kind of one of the more fun things I think that we started doing recently. It's been great just to talk with chat.
It's been really great just catching up with chat and the community 3 times a week and just hanging out, answering questions.
Yep. And we'll be back on Monday to answer more questions, but we got to wrap it up today because it's time for the Smite 1 update, chat.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, chat, thanks so much for tuning in. Smite 2 update early next week. Smite 1 update later next week. And Lermy, J-Mac, and Dandy will be on the other side of this break to walk you through everything. But until then, we'll see y'all on the battleground. Peace.